So good evening and welcome everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. I'm your host Angie and I'm really excited to be moderating today's discussion. So today's webinar is focused on hiring, retaining and building strong teams within medical aesthetics, especially in a market where attracting and keeping top talent has become more competitive than ever. We have a fantastic panel joining us today, and I'm looking forward to all of the valuable insights and conversations we'll be sharing throughout the session. And of course, we'd also like to extend a huge thank you to the sponsor of today's event, that is Equa Marketing. Equa Marketing is one of the most trusted digital marketing organizations across the US and Canada, with over 18 years of experience supporting dermatology and plastic surgery practices, and over 500 healthcare practices in their client network itself. Thank you again to the Equa team for supporting today's webinar. So before we fully dive in, let me ask you this. When potential patients in your area search for treatments you offer, does your practice actually show up, or are they finding your competitors instead? Because honestly, this is a huge challenge for a lot of aesthetic practices right now. You could be offering incredible services, but if your online visibility isn't strong enough, you're probably missing potential patients every single day. But the good news is, with the right digital marketing strategy, whether that's local SEO, targeted ads, or funnel-based content marketing, practices can attract more qualified leads and actually convert them into patients walking through the door. And definitely stay with us until the end, because we'll also be sharing something special that could really help take your practice's online presence to the next level. So, throughout today's conversation, we'll be discussing what's changed in hiring within medical aesthetics, what top talent is actually looking for today, common hiring mistake practices make, and how to build a workplace people genuinely want to stay in and grow in. First, we have Courtney Anderson. She is the VP of Trainings and Charity Initiatives at the Injector Collective. The cap says it all. Courtney is an entrepreneur and respected industry leader who founded Spa Troop and successfully grew it into 6 Utah locations before selling the company in 2024. She is also an Entrepreneur of the Year regional finalist, an AMSPA speaker and finalist, and is passionate about mentorship, training, and helping others succeed. Courtney, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yeah, excited to be here.
All right. So next we're joined by Dr. Ben Tracy, founder and CEO of the Injector Collective. So after building and selling a 6-location med spa practice in New York, Dr. Tracy created a mentorship-driven model rooted in artistry and clinical excellence. He's known for innovative techniques, natural results, and for training injectors nationwide while serving as a faculty for ABM, AmSpa, and the Aesthetic Show. Dr. Tracy, we're so happy to have you with us today.
Yeah, I'm excited to be on. Let's get to this.
And joining us as well is Stephanie Leonard, founder of Matchit MD Medical Recruiting. Stephanie founded Matchit MD, a boutique recruiting firm focused specifically on the medical aesthetics industry. So with experience spanning nursing, healthcare sales, marketing, and recruiting, she helps practices build strong, high-performing teams through strategic hiring and partnerships. Stephanie, thank you so much for joining with us today.
Thanks for having me.
All
Can I just
right,
interrupt real
so
quick and say,
yeah.
Stephanie, where were you when I had my med spas? I would have
Uh,
killed for someone like you.
I probably was working in one of them.
Okay.
All right, so we are going to head into the questions right away. Stephanie, I want to start with the hiring landscape overall, because candidate expectations in aesthetics seems to be evolving really quickly right now. So, from what you're seeing, which candidate expectations have shifted most in medical aesthetics when strong applicants compare multiple practice offers?
Right now we're in a candidate market, so everybody is getting to choose where they want to work. A lot of the top performers that we're seeing, if they're not finding what they want, they're going and building practices themselves. So they're really looking for a cultural fit. It used to be a couple years ago, you used to be able to give somebody like a high number or a high amount to get them to join your practice. Now it's not that way. They want to know what kind of leadership there is, what kind of culture there is, if there's any special incentives for like training, mentorship, anything like that. So it's just really a candidate market right now and what they're wanting. A lot of them are not thinking like, what are they liking me? They want to know that they like the practice that they're going to work for.
Yeah. Okay. I think that connects really well into the conversation around training and preparedness as well, right? So, because attracting talent is one thing, but developing talent successfully is another. So, Courtney, where do new injectors feel the training gap most acutely when entering the market under real patient volume pressure?
Oh, I think when they come in for training, there is a huge gap, one from the expectation of the owner and the expectation of the trainee. So I feel like they come in and they kind of expect uh, the clinic to provide training for them. And I see that as a big red flag. And truly, we should be looking at their training and what they've received first. That's like the first thing I always did. And I want to tout Dr. Ben right now and his training because I oversee his trainings. And a lot of these injectors receive trainings from Vegas or, they just get these basic certifications. They're not accredited, they're not very valid. So Dr. Ben's is accredited. And not only that, it's a published technique and it's a technique that MERS is bringing on to train their people nationwide, their injectors nationwide, which I think is pretty awesome. So I think we really need to look at their training first. That seems to be the most important thing. And then we need to make sure that we're helping them with their hustle and their grind. I think a lot of injectors come in and they expect to be handed over clients and they're not really taught how to hustle or how to grind. So a lot of them need to be taught how to network. They need to be taught the importance of social media, the importance of reaching out on their downtime, rebooking, and all of those things.
Okay. What do you think is one training system or a support structure that helps newer injectors become confident faster?
Oh my goodness. So many. I think the best are the ones, first of all, that are out seeking their own type of mentorship or their own their own training because they like I said, they kind of expect to come into a clinic and receive that training. I also think there is a huge gap in expectations and scope. We had a lot of providers come in that didn't realize that they needed supervision. They didn't understand consents. There's a lot of laws in Utah that are very, very gray. And I was actually a rep for a little while, and one of the big red flags that I struggled with was walking into providers and they had no clue how to handle adverse events. They
Just
did not have
terrifying.
any Silenex. Yeah, they didn't have any. There was no flooring that had like it was just scary. It was carpet and it was there's no protocols. So it was just a little bit scary. So I'm going to tout Dr. Ben again, but he's created a Utah safety network for this reason because there are so many nurses that just don't understand what they can and can't do and then don't have protocols in place. So I think there's a big gap there as well.
Yeah. Could you point out a few red flags that you've noticed?
Red flags in the gap of training.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, definitely adverse events, there's a gap. Um, Advanced training, there's definitely a gap. I think of a lot of injectors just receive basic toxin training, like a
Yeah.
trade
Or they
course,
do it online, which
or
is
they do it
also
online.
terrifying.
Yeah, they're going to a non-accredited course.
Which is terrifying.
We've had a couple of injectors take Dr. Ben's classes that took courses in the past, and the stories are so scary. They're like, yeah, there was 40 people in the room and it was projected up on the screen. We didn't get any hands-on training. It was just a lecture, and that's so scary.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a gap in hands-on training. Um, there's a gap in mentorship for sure. And I know that we're trying to fill that gap at the Injector Collective. Dr. Ben does mentorship training, which I think is so awesome because you can't become a good injector without investing in yourself and taking the time to mentor. But yeah, I think the red flags are just basic certifications, not enough mentorship, not having enough training on basic protocols. Um,
Can
Lots of red flags.
it's
All
kind of
right.
what
Now,
maybe to kind of broaden this a little bit and go back to the first question and integrate it with training is that we had this like beautiful golden age post COVID where everyone was busy, business is booming, everyone's growing, right? Everyone's coming in industry, getting jobs, not a big issue. And now things have kind of flattened a little bit. And so you tend to see three different types of injectors that are looking for jobs. One is the brand new RN that went to RN school so that they could inject. It's like their passion, their goal, right? And for them to get into the industry now is really, really challenging because we're seeing this shrinkage and med spas practices. They're struggling to fill their books, right? And if they're not running efficiently and doing smart business practices and marketing and all these wonderful things, right? Then they're struggling. You have your mid-level kind of injector. I would say that's someone that's like 3 to 6 years. That person tends to be someone that, for whatever reason, they no longer fit in the box of where they're working. And they're the easiest to recruit because usually they want more of something. They want kind of what Stephanie was saying. They want to know what the culture is like. They want to know, like, am I going to get more training, education? Where's the growth opportunity, right? And then you have the last group. It's your seasoned veterans, and they're like the rock stars that they're booked out for forever, and they've got a sweet deal in place.
yeah.
And trying to get one of those to come and work for you is, maybe
Doesn't
Stephanie, you can.
exist.
I mean that they're like the unicorn, right? They've figured out a landing
It doesn't
spot. They're
exist.
comfortable. Like the clinic kind of works around them, right?
Yeah.
Unless you give them commission in 2 days a week, they're not coming for
And a
you.
signing
Right.
bonus.
So you can throw money, you can throw other things, but there's really got to be some sort of reason for them to leave. And typically that's a hard pull. And so what Courtney is really referring to is this group that still want to get into the industry. And um, we don't have much support, and we don't have a system to bring them on. Everyone around here that is looking to hire people wants people that are experienced, already have a book of business, right?
Mhm.
Because there's loyalty to an injector. I saw people that have come from New York to see me because they don't want anyone else to touch their face, right? There's loyalty. So that's what people are looking for. So these younger, newer injectors are really being stranded because no one's taking the time to really invest in them, to educate them, to support them, to help them grow and be successful. And so I think that that's one of the biggest gaps is that, and I think the industry is still growing. It's still going to continue to grow. Like there's no
Mhm.
doubt about
Sure.
that. But
Yeah.
how are we going to meet that demand if we're not supporting these younger injectors? And there's some rock stars out there that they just need the opportunity. They need the mentor. They need the senior person, whatever that looks like, to really help them. Without that, it gets pretty dicey, and that's where you get all these unsafe, kind of situations that probably shouldn't be happening is because they want to be in it so bad, so they're gonna just do their thing from their basement, with a medical director that maybe isn't even in aesthetics. So anyway,
Scary.
sorry, I just went on a whole tangent there. So
Well, I
hopefully
have a
that
couple
wrapped it up a
practices
little bit
that
and applied.
only take new injectors. I have a few clients
Hmm.
that only take new injectors so they can mold them and train them and do what they want. And then they scare the hell out of them that like if you leave, you know how expensive it is to run a practice, which is true. It's hard. There's marketing, there's overhead, there's all the things. And if they give them great compensation, a piece of the pie, revenue sharing, great culture. Nobody wants to leave that. Like running your own business is hard as hell. So like you don't want to have to like leave to do all that to then get what you could already get if you're making like a good culture and a good place for an injector to be.
Yeah, to your point, I absolutely, I'd much rather have a brand new, injector that's never
They
injected
don't learn bad
before.
habits that way.
They get to learn all the things the right way and do things the way that I want them to be done. But I also recognized that I just considered that they each had a shelf life, and knowing that in the progression of a lot of these injectors, and that's kind of what we're talking about, is how do we retain them? Like, and trust me, I've tried every single thing. Knowing that in 3 years, I'm already thinking I need to find the next new injector to replace this person, just an off chance they go somewhere else, start their own thing or whatever. That tends to be the
Sure.
cycle a lot of times for injectors.
Mhm.
I think that naturally brings us into supervision, safety, and knowing when someone is truly prepared to take on more responsibility, right? So, Dr. Tracy, during an injector training handoff, what boundary needs to be clear before a trainee touches real patients?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we have to go through all the theory and make sure that we understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, right? And then I mean, I get down to the nuance of, how you hold the needle, how do you actually insert the needle into the skin, what angle? I mean, I'm very, very particular about all these different things. And then we do a lot of practicing, right? So, and then everybody across the board, the first time they're going to inject and they're going to be like, oh my gosh, like, right there. It happens every time. It doesn't matter how seasoned you are. And maybe it's because I'm standing there. I don't know. Um, and so just like preparing them for that, I'm always right there the first time. I've got my gloves on. I'm ready to intervene. Um, Selecting the right patients, the right models for them to inject on is huge. Because if you have someone that's like, little iffy. It's intimidating having someone with a shaky hand coming at your face with a neurotoxin or lip filler or whatever, right? So I do all of that, and then I really it's right there. For me, I used to have a 3 month onboarding process where they shadowed for 3 months before I would let them start to see clients on their own. And even when after that 3 months, there was another month or two that I would have them when they actually injected, either myself or one of my senior injectors had to be in the room for the injection part, but the consultation, everything they could do on their own. So it takes a lot to get someone up to speed, get them skilled, get them comfortable, right? And so again, I think this kind of speaks to what Courtney was saying, that we don't have a good way a lot of times to do this. And if you think about these larger programs and stuff, if I was trying to teach 40 people and make sure all their technique was great and they're all injecting patients all around the room, there's no way, right? So the quality and the control there is really going to be lost. So I think small size, you got to go through all the foundation stuff, repetition before you touch anything, make sure all those things, and then just like prepare them. This is going to be like you're going to be freaked out.
Mhm.
You're going to be shaky. Like that's normal, right? I'm going to be right here. Like I am going to make sure that this is okay. And if it's not, I will stop you, right? If something's going bad or whatever. And then I'm going to guarantee like to see this person and follow up with you and show you like what your results look like and get you comfortable with that whole entire flow and process. And that's maybe one of the unique things that I do with my neurotoxin trainings is I actually schedule all the follow-ups and have the injectors come back and see their patients again and ask about their experience and learn how it went for them, right? With what they did. And then they can actually do some self-reflection, which is also important.
What specific competency or behavior tells you someone is truly ready for, more responsibility?
If they ask for help, the scariest new injector, scariest injector is the injector that doesn't want to look dumb, that refuses to ask for help when they have a question. Like if someone is injecting or if they have a concerned thought, they actually go and find someone to bounce the idea off, get help, get a second pair of eyes, whatever. If you can't acknowledge that you don't know something and you're just going to wing it, that's where things bad can happen in my mind. So that's like the number one thing. Are they humble? Are they willing to seek help when they need it? And then I think there's a lot of other things that you can demonstrate. Like, you have to have engagement with that person, right? So
Yeah.
you have to be able to watch them inject, watch them talk to a client. Like, how do they even? I'm huge on the client experience. From the moment they get into the parking lot until they leave, get back in their car. Like, what's that experience like? So can they deliver on that, right? And then do they have a way of actually doing self-reflection to improve? Like if you do something, and even if you're like, I think this is right, but it doesn't turn out right, what are you going to do? Right? If you don't have the ability to actually take a look and take a step back and say, what could have gone wrong here? What could I have done better? Like if they're not willing to look at that stuff and actually ask themselves maybe some hard questions, right? Then there's going to be stagnation and there's not going to be growth. That the best injectors that I've ever seen, the ones that are true artists, are the ones that are constantly critiquing their own work, constantly striving to find a way to do something a little bit better. They're always, always, always growing, always progressing. I think the other thing that we really lack in our education in aesthetics is we don't train injectors how to think. We train them how to follow patterns, how to do certain steps, but we don't actually give them the knowledge and the ability to actually think and actually think through things. So I'm a huge, if you train with me, I'm gonna be like, well, what do you think? Right? I don't want to just give people answers. I don't want to just show people. Like I want them to actually have to like tell me and like do a logical, rational explanation why I want to do something the way that I want to do it. And then if I'm like, it's still safe, as long as it's safe, I'm like, let's try it, right? Because in general, my kind of philosophy is that we can make things right for our patients. Like my patients don't know it, but every single patient is an experiment, right? I'm constantly trying to figure out a better way to do things. And so I think that that allows for them to actually have that process of analyzing, thinking, and then reflecting. And if they can do that, they can ask for help, they're good to go.
That's a great point, actually. I think not just in the aesthetics industry, but in every industry that really does apply, always ask for help if you don't know what you're doing.
Mhm.
Yeah. Stephanie, this one's for you now. How should practices decide between hiring quickly and waiting for a stronger fit when patient demand is building?
This is my favorite. Um, no, so because a lot of people hire fast, or they're slow to fire, or they're like waiting to see, or like I need to get fill chairs, I need to fill chairs. But if you hire the wrong person, it can ruin your practice.
Mhm.
If
Mhm.
you get somebody, and they might do great numbers, like they might bring you a lot of revenue, but they're an awful person and they're making the culture horrible and they're making the experience horrible, like they can cost you way more money. So I always tell people, like, when I have conversations with them for hiring, I always ask, like, do you know who, like, the hierarchy is, like, who's going to hire them? Who are they going to be underneath? Who's going to make the decisions? Because for one, candidates also know when there's a disorganization in the community, and they'll turn away really quick. And they might be a great candidate, but if you're not strong in your practice, they will walk away. But so I always tell people, like, you need to make sure that your house is structured everybody knows what's going on before you bring somebody in, because that can just turn into chaos. And you don't just want to fill a seat. You want to make sure that you're bringing in somebody that's going to help you, because it's going to cost you more money to bring somebody in, to train them, to have them, they might piss off 2 other employees in the process of it. And then you're not just having to fill 1 position, you're having to fill 3. So you really have to make sure that everything internally is structured and how it should be, and the culture should be great, rather than just filling a seat. Unless there's like, that's your only injector and you really need somebody to come inject and you have like clients out the door, then maybe. But you should just slowly hire to make sure that it's a good fit for you. But you also shouldn't sit on candidates and be like, oh, I hope somebody comes along that's better, because if it's a good candidate, they're going to go quick. Everyone's very, very quick to give somebody a position. So if they're a good candidate, you don't want to just sit and wait on them.
What advice would you give practices that feel desperate to fill positions right now?
You need to look internally, because if you need that position that bad, there's something not there that you're not able to retain employees. So if you're like, I really need somebody, it's again something internally that you need to structureize before you bring somebody else in. Because of course, like if there's the patient, like if suddenly a bunch of people come in and they're like, I want all these injections, that's one thing, but that's usually not the case. It's usually that they're not able to retain employees. And then you need to look internally and to make sure that your process is correct, everything's clear, everything's transparent, because you can bring a great injector in, and if it's chaos in your house, they're going to go right back out and you're going to be in the same position.
Yeah, I used to live off of, to your point, one of my, and this might maybe this sounds cruel, but I used to, and maybe you've heard this, hire slow, fire fast, right? I mean, and it took me a while to get to that point and understand that, but man, is it true. And
Yeah,
to your
people are
point,
like 3 strikes. I'm like 2 strikes. That's it. You tell them one time, they don't listen the first time, they're gone. Because a toxic, horrible person can ruin your entire everything. Your
everything.
office manager, the reps, the front desk. I've seen a bad injector come in and then the entire staff quit, and then you're stuck with just the great injector, and no matter who you bring in, it's just a whirlwind, and the door is always open of people. Like if you can't keep your house clean internally, you're never going to succeed.
Yeah, I'd want to know why they're feeling so desperate to hire. That'd be my first question. Like, why?
People tell me, I'll take anybody.
What is going on? Like,
I'll take anybody. And that's the first red flag. I'm like, ooh, I don't think
is your business booming that good? I mean,
no, it's not.
Right?
They're
That's
not.
the problem. So
Yeah.
that'd be the only reason, is if you're like triple booked and you're seeing, 100 patients a day or something, and you're like, I can't keep doing it. Other than that, something's
It's
wrong.
usually an internal process.
Yep.
All right. Now, while we're on the topic of hiring, I think one of the biggest challenges practices face is identifying who's actually trainable long term versus who may struggle under real clinical expectations. Now, Courtney, what signals separate a trainable injector candidate from someone not ready for the market under supervision limits?
Oh gosh, well, I think Dr. Bren brought up so many good points. But I like to think of the 3 H's. I like to think they're humble, they're hungry, and they have hustle. Like we talked about, I think being humble is probably one of the most important characteristics, because just like you said, if they come in overly confident, if they come in with really, really high expectations, if they come in poisoning the team, that's a very bad hire. If they're not willing to learn, if they're not willing to ask questions, like was discussed, they're not going to be a good fit. That being said, I think there is some accountability with that. Like we talked about, I do think processes of follow-up to help them along are important. I was always a process queen. So we had an acronym for our culture that they were required to review when they were onboarded. So they knew the culture when they started. It was called the Truve Way, and each letter stood for something. We had a 30-day follow-up, a 90-day, And those gave us opportunities to say yay or nay to each other, you know. The second, hunger, I think, is key. I think of an injector as someone who has to build like a brand within a brand. You know, they're kind of their own person. Our most successful injectors were ones that really just, like we talked about earlier, wanted to learn. Um, they were just hungry. They were networking. They were getting out, you know, getting to know the community, asking clients to follow them on social media, building their own social media presence. That's not really anything you can train someone.
I was gonna say
You
you
know,
can't train, you
you
can't
can't train it.
drive.
You
Can't
can't
give
train
someone drive.
drive. Yeah, I'd see
Train
injectors in the
technique,
gym.
but you cannot do
Yeah,
drive.
right. I mean, it's a huge, especially with injectors. I mean, we've all seen the divas, you know, like Dr. Brennan was talking about, how there's the tier. Well, usually those divas were or are the most hungry and the most tenacious, and that's why they are the way they just demand it, you know. They demand the money, they demand the success, but it's also very honorable because the ones that are down here on level one are not as tenacious or not as hungry, you know. So it would be a red flag to me when I would see an injector in the break room and they had 2 hours of downtime and you know they're not educating, they're not reaching out, they're not rebooking, they're not planning a next promo. They're just kind of complaining that their books are empty. And that's just like, you know, okay, well, you're probably not going to succeed because the hunger is not there. And then the hustle just kind of goes right along with that. I think it's just a hustle type job. That it's interesting that you say there's so many owners hiring right now because you know, looking back, we can all probably look back. We've been in the industry over a decade. I mean, I remember in Utah when there was just like 10 prominent injectors, and now it's so saturated, I can't even keep track, even with the amount of new fillers. Dr. Ben and I saw an Obagi filler the other day, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's a skincare line creating fillers. Like, never seen that before. So anyway, I think they have to hustle to stay on top of all the new products and all the brands. And like we talked about, stay in touch with those reps. And um, those three things are just, I think, the key.
We spoke a lot about red flags, right? Can we go into the green flags? You know, what is one of the green flags you immediately notice in candidates who tend to succeed long term?
Mm, green flags are um, client experience, like Dr. Ben talked about, uh, injectors who are really personable. I think those who either polish their people skills, have natural people skills. I remember our TARP injector, she would take notes of each client and they were very detailed notes. They were like, this person's birthday was this day, their nephew, you know, like those small details. She would touch their elbow when they came in. She would send them not just like thank you notes, but literally very personable things, you know, congratulations on graduations and things like that. Um, I think that is a huge green flag. Um, and like I talked about before, I just think someone who's really wants it and really tenacious. I don't know, Stephanie, Dr. Wren, what do you think? What are more green flags?
I see like the green flags of just being on the recruiting side of people that follow up because there's some people that are like, okay, you reach out to me, and I'm like, absolutely not. Like, you want a job,
Yeah,
like
right. The
follow up.
text.
And the people, to your point earlier about the training, people that did the training themselves, they went to whatever training, a reputable training, they did this advanced training, they did that training, because that's what sets them apart from other people that are like, oh, well, I want this job and I'm happy to take whatever course they send me to. And it's like, no, sweetheart, that's not how this game is. Like, you have to put it forward and pay for those things and do it. I'm a nurse myself. I get those things get expensive, but if you really want it and you want to be in that position, you'll do, like, those are green flags that you're going to put yourself ahead of other people to make sure that you're standing out when it comes to that process.
Yeah. And I will say the out of the box thinkers. I know Dr. Wren
Oh,
mentioned that too, but the ones that question. Those are probably some of the very best because they're the ones that push the industry
We
forward.
specifically have out of the box questions that are so ridiculous to ask somebody, but it
Yeah.
just proves the critical thinking of like somebody being able to be like, oh, this is what you do. And we have a specific like whole protocol for injectors just on that, because
Yeah.
then that shows it that you're able to like not just be like, oh, I'm reading off of a script. Like I've had people chat GPT as I'm asking them questions.
Yeah.
Literally, I can hear type, 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 and I'm like, are you serious? So like I ask these random questions and they're like, what? And I'm like, it's okay if you don't know, it's not a big deal. And then I do not call them back.
Yeah.
But the green flags are the people that follow up and that want it and then show that they want those things. Because it's very hard. People are very complacent and like kind of sit back these days and just expect that things come to them.
Hmm.
So the
I,
opposite of that is great.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say, like, for me, another couple of things maybe I would add is someone that is a team player, like that, the client experience, the whole thing. It's not I mean, there are solo injector practices, don't get me wrong. But one of the things that I used to require is that as part of onboarding is I would make the injector spend a week working reception,
Mm.
and I would have them do cleaning of the rooms and taking out the garbage. And so every injector experienced every aspect of our practice, right? And then you have that collaboration team, and I think that that's the part of it, is that there's no, I view it as like everyone's important, right? So everyone's a part of this process, that you all have to come together to work to make it successful. And so can they be a team player and see people for people instead of, you know, physicians tend to be really bad at this. I'm the MD, so do it my way, right? Which is not a good way to run a business. And then along with that, I think communication, like they need to be able to communicate not only with patients and the experience, but I want to know, like, how is it going? Like, and if you have something that's not working for you, you need to be able to advocate and bring that up and be professional and communicate back and forth. If we can have an open dialogue about things, chances are we can find a solution. But if it just gets buried and people are just down in the break room, oh, I just, blah, 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 then that just taints everything. Resentment builds, tends to not go well for anybody at that point. So, can they actually professionally, maturely communicate?
To your
That's
point
a
about
great
the front
point.
desk thing, I always tell my clients when somebody comes in for an in-person interview to put a piece of trash in the lobby and see if they pick it up.
Oh, that's such a good idea.
I'm like, put a
What?
piece of trash in the lobby and see if they pick it up. If they don't pick it up, they're like, oh, that's not my job. And do you want that person?
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
Well,
I'm gonna do that
Yeah.
tomorrow.
That's a great point, Stephanie. Now, at the first screening conversation, right, what information changes whether a candidate stays engaged or drops out?
Is for me or
Mm,
everyone?
For
Oh,
you,
I was like, for me
definitely.
or everyone. The first conversation you have with people is just transparency, because when you're transparent with them, you can see if they're going to engage with that conversation or if they're just going to be like dropping out on it. The first thing people always ask is compensation. And so you have to have very, strict compensation rules, or not rules, like guidelines of that. Like, is it, base versus commission or that sort of thing? And you can just tell the more questions people ask, the more interested they are in it. So again, transparency is everything. I'm a very honest person in every way, shape, and form of my life. So it's not always a good thing, but I am very transparent, like with candidates, because they'll ask me, why is this position needing to be filled? Is it growth, or is it because so many people are just coming through the door that they need to keep it? I'm very honest in those things. I will and do not work with practices that don't have good culture, because then I'm just setting myself up for failure, because I'm never going to find somebody good for them. So when it's the first conversation is just a lot of transparency. I make the candidates talk more about themselves than I ask them questions. Again, I ask very out of the box questions that are like, why would you ever ask these things? A lot of people like personality quizzes.
Yes, I actually do. But
Yeah, there's some good
some
aspects to
yes,
that. Some of
yes.
it, people know how to do it. If you're a test taker, you can figure it out.
Yeah, they can
But it's just really being able to engage with that person and for them to be able to hold a conversation. Because at the end of the day, aesthetics is sales. And if
yeah.
they can't talk to you or hold a conversation, they're not going to do well. They could have the best technique, they could do whatever, but if they cannot connect and talk to their clients, it's just not going to go well. So it's always like the engagement, the transparency, the getting them to speak. And they will let you know if they're interested or not. And that's kind of how we do our process of things.
All right. Now, I also want to come back to this training side for a moment because once someone is hired, practices still need to evaluate progress carefully in real clinic environments, right? So, Dr. Tracy, what observable behavior shows a newly trained injector is becoming safer under supervision in real clinic flow?
Yeah, so I really think like we had a whole process of training and onboarding injectors and it included like actual like checklists and verification of skills and knowledge. And so as you went and worked with them, and again, we never left them alone for the first little part. You'd be able to get a sense for when they were ready to start seeing, at least doing the consult, and then the consult marking, and then eventually transition to be able to see a patient on their own. And kind of like I said before, my biggest thing is want to make sure they understand safety, and then that they can ask for help. And I never, I'm a terrible interviewer. I always like go off the wall, but I kind of do that on purpose that I want people to be comfortable and I kind of want to put them in a little bit of a stressful environment. And I never hired someone just straight up. Like I always have I had a transitional or I'm blanking on what the term is, but a contract for like 3 or 6 months that they would have, and then we would reevaluate along that process because not only do I want them to be the right fit for me, but I want them to be like I want for them to think that we're the right fit for them, right? Both sides. And another little pearl that I realize if you send an injector loose in your clinic and just let them shoot the breeze with other injectors wherever and just let them loose, they will say the stupidest things that you would never think they would say,
That's
right?
with
But I've
anybody.
had so many people admit so many dumb things. I'm like, ah, dodged a bullet on that one because they just, said whatever. So let them loose, let them talk to people, and like it's wild what comes out of their mouth when they're not like interviewing with the boss.
Do a working interview with the team.
Well, everybody,
All my interviews are that way. Yeah,
every
they're
time we
working.
interview, when I interview with somebody, they're different. When they interview the office manager, they're different. When they interview the doctor, they're different.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh, I'm like, just compare notes. Like you can tell what's bullshit and what's not.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
just go because everybody has a different something to say. And it's like you
Yeah.
can tell if they're being authentic or if they're just like doing
Yeah.
it to do it to say, like, I'm great at this. No, you're not.
Yeah. I think setting up an actual treatment working interview too is also so helpful to see their technique and how they are with the client. I don't know, that was
Bring your
always
craziest client in,
bring your craziest client. See
the
how
most needy one, and let them go.
Sharon.
Or if you have your most seasoned injector be part of the interview process, they'll be able to suss out whether someone's like, yeah,
So
I know what
true.
I'm doing,
So true.
or if they're legit or not.
Yeah.
But, and this is probably not for this meeting, but Stephanie, I'm dying for you to ask me one of these questions to see if I'm hireable. I don't know how I'm going to
I want
respond,
to know
but it
the
may
out
be
of the
good. It
box
might be
question.
terrible. I don't know. I'm
I'll
like so
send it to you
curious.
guys. I'll send it to you guys. There's some people that are like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I asked this with a straight face, completely
I
like."
can't wait.
Dr.
I'm going to
Fine's
give
just
you a
gonna set
straight
up
answer.
interviews for fun now.
All
So it's gonna
right, so we're running a little bit out of time. So we're going to pause for a bit. There were so many good insights in that discussion. So thank you all for sharing your perspectives. Let me just share the screen. Before we move into our live Q&A, I also wanted to briefly highlight an opportunity from the Business of Aesthetics team. So one thing that really stood out to me is how intentional their approach is. So before you even show up for your strategy session, their team has already done the work, researching your practice, reviewing your local market, analyzing competitors, and identifying potential growth opportunities. Oh man, I'm so sorry for the background noise, guys.
You're
I don't know.
I don't really hear it, so just keep
Okay, perfect.
carry on.
Great. Okay. So that includes things like computer audits, AI visibility analysis, trade area demand insights, and customized recommendations designed specifically for your practice. So if you'd like to learn more, scan the QR code on the screen or visit the link provided. All right, so now we are going to open things up for the live Q&A. So if you'd like to ask a question, you can drop in directly to the chat.
I think there's one.
Let me see. We do have some questions that came in earlier. So this is so the question is, for practices trying to scale quickly across multiple locations, what are the most effective retention strategies you've seen beyond compensation alone, especially for injectors, managers, and front desk teams?
Culture. Give them growth opportunities, give reasons to want to scale, give reasons to want to grow with you. I know you said not compensation, but if you give people a piece of the pie, like revenue sharing, if they've been with you for a while, they will work harder than anyone you've ever seen. If you kind of give like incentives to be like, if this location or if this people, or if you meet this goal, you'll get like a spa day or you'll get whatever drives your employees. You really have to look at that and just give incentives and treat them with respect and culture and share with them. And as long as you're loyal to them, they'll be loyal to you.
And along with that, I think culture is huge. And I think every employee, every injector, every probably person, they just want to be heard, right? So giving people a seat
Respect.
at the table, letting them be involved, right, I think that's critical. The other thing that aside from this is you gotta have your stuff nailed down. You can't just like scale and hope it's gonna work out. You gotta really build the infrastructure, build the plans, put everything into place so that scaling actually makes sense. If you don't have like the core functionality, if you don't have your business figured out, scaling is just gonna be a nightmare. It's just going to keep you up at night, honestly. It's a lot of work because trying to manage culture, trying to manage injectors across regions, across locations, right? When you're not physically there, if you're the person that owns it, that's driving it, you gotta have the pieces in place. You gotta have the infrastructure. You gotta have people that passionate, that love your business like you love it, that treat it like it's yours. If you don't have those people on your team, you're just gonna be like fighting this forever, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would say be really transparent with them and then invite them. I think one thing that really helped me was um like Dr. Brandon, like you said, inviting them to the table and asking them what their goals are and a pathway on how they want to get there. And then show them, be just very honest with the numbers. I know that profit sharing works. It really did work for my team, but it was just very transparent. Like, we need to get to this goal for you to get the profit sharing. And then they were bought into wanting to hit that goal. But I think the word invite is really powerful because if they're included in your growth and included in your dream, then they're a lot less likely to leave because they feel like they're a part of your dream.
100%.
There's one more question in the chat. What is the best channel to recruit? Are industry conventions effective?
Always have on your website that you're hiring all the time.
Hmm.
I
Does
tell
LinkedIn
everybody
work,
to
Stephanie?
always put that they're hiring all the time because somebody might be looking at that and they research you. So
Hmm.
don't look like a crappy employer. But like show your thing. But I always tell everybody to always say that you're hiring because you don't know who's going to come through or moving to the area and is reaching out to everybody. So you're always hiring and you don't have to hire them. Like you just get resumes that coming into you constantly and there might be a good fit somewhere and you might be like, okay, we weren't ready to hire, but we can, make an option to be able to do that if it's somebody really good. Um, and the best thing is networking locally. Any sort of businesses, you talk to anybody and you're like, oh, we're always hiring, we always this. I go to every convention and every conference, and that's the least of where I get any candidates. It's always like a local networking to whatever specific area we're at. And I'm shooting myself in the foot here, but make best friends with your reps in the area because they know who's unhappy and they know who wants to make moves. So,
So true.
All
Does
mm.
right.
LinkedIn work for you, Stephanie? I'm just wondering.
Is what?
LinkedIn, like the hiring button on LinkedIn?
No,
No?
Instagram's better, as weird as that is, but yeah, Instagram is better.
Right.
All right, so let's move into a few questions that were submitted by attendees during registration. So Stephanie, here's a question we received from one of our attendees. They said, we just lost our lead injector to a competitor across town. How do we handle patient communication around her departure without losing patients to her new practice?
I'm a full person on transparency. And if you give a good enough experience at your place, they might love the injector, but they might go see her and then have a horrible experience over there. I think it's a patient experience thing. I think you should just be honest. Like she moved somewhere else. I would never give the name, but she went somewhere else. But we're happy to get you in with this person, and this is their highlights. Can we give you 10% off your treatment or give some sort of incentive to make them want to stick with you? And then just make a really good patient experience. If you're loyal to your patients, like they'll be loyal to you. Of course, some people are not all going to stay because they might really love their injector, but try to just do everything that you can to incentivize them to stay with you, and just make the experience the best you can.
I kind
Um,
of agree with that. And I would say, I would just answer you don't, honestly. I think the injector, if they're a good injector, they're going to trump the practice 9 times out of 10. And so you're just going to look petty. Like the patients, the clients, they're going to see right through your excuses, right? So I think you do. You just own it
Be
and
transparent. Yeah,
transparent
there's
and
no
be upfront
reason.
about it. And then sure, try to retain them, but just recognize that the reality is that sucks. It's happened to all of us that have owned a med spa. And yeah, it's not fun, but like, where do you go from there? How do you move forward, right? So don't dwell on that as much as moving forward in whatever capacity you can. You hire Stephanie.
Yeah.
That's what you
Probably
do, I
stay
guess.
positive too, because
I don't know. Why did she leave? That's my question.
yeah. Good question.
Fair.
So hard.
all right. Dr. Tracy, another attendee asked, what's a reasonable timeline to expect a new injector to become profitable, meaning generating more revenue than their fully loaded cost?
Well, so I had like, if it's a new injector, I would do training pay. So I didn't pay them a full amount. So they would have to get through the training period, at least that first 90 days. And that was just part of it. And knowing that I was going to pay them less, they're basically getting this amazing education, right? I'm going to invest a ton of time, like hours and hours and hours training and teaching and working with them and my other injectors and staff will as well, right? So I just look at it as a sunk cost. But by 90 days, my practice was bustling enough that I could start shunting clients to them, right? We could start getting them to have bookings. So I would start seeing that turnaround. We would usually start with neurotoxins, and then into like they're not going to be doing 5, 10 syringes in a sitting anytime soon, right? So I think just managing those expectations with what they can actually do, and I wouldn't pay them a full salary until they've actually made it to the point where they deserve that or they've earned that. And then I was kind of different in how I actually compensated people. My injectors, I did it very transparent, and I did it based off of just Allergan's benchmark data, and I did um, uh, based off of revenue per hour, and that was the metric that we tracked. And so based on where they were in that scale, that's how I paid them. Just period. Everyone knew what the scales were. It was very transparent. And so they could see on their paper, I started out at the 25th percentile. I'm getting 25th percent of the pay for an RN injector. If I can hustle and sell more or do whatever, right, and get to that 50th percentile, if they would do that for 2 consecutive quarters, then I would just bump them up at that point to the 50th percentile. And so I was very careful with my margins on the cost of my injectors based off of their productivity.
All right. That's actually a really good point. Now, Stephanie, this next question is especially interesting for smaller practices. So they asked, we're a single location practice. Do we even compete with larger multi-location groups for top injectors, or do we need to recruit differently?
It just depends again what they're offering, what their culture is. There's multiple location places that I would never touch ever or go around just because given like the name and the culture there. So you can get really good injectors. It's what you're offering and what you have to give to them as well. So if you have a really good culture, there's some practices that are small that are amazing that I'd rather be around than go to like bigger named things. They really care for their patients and they really give the experience. It's all what you're able to offer them because again, we are in a candidate market, so whatever you're going to offer them, they're going to come to. And some people might drop down on pay if it's a better culture, if it's a better fit for them. So I wouldn't say, I mean, I would never tell somebody, oh, just give up because that's crazy. You shouldn't be a business owner if you're just going to give up on things. But definitely shoot your shot and just like everything, as long as the culture is good, a lot of people will want to work there.
Courtney, this last attendee question is for you. What's a realistic ramp-up timeline for a new injector? Trying to set expectations with my partner who thinks they should be fully booked by month 2.
Not gonna happen. I think it depends on one, the experience of the injector. I mean, if you're recruiting a really experienced injector that has a decent clientele, then sure, month 2 or 3 is great. If you're recruiting a greenie, and Dr. Ben is the provider, he might be able to speak to this even better than I can. But in our practice, we had a pass off. So we started with toxin, and it was just toxin clients for 30 days. And then we moved on to toxin lips, and we had our master, we had a director of injection training, and she would pass off lips, and then it was just toxin lips for 90 days. And then we would have cheeks. So really, it took a good 6 months for a newer injector to be able to confidently do tox lips and cheeks. And I even say to perfect that might even take a year. I think injections is an art and everyone's anatomy is so different, and learning that anatomy takes time, and it takes seeing a lot of different faces and a lot of different clients. And then you have, in addition to that, the people skills and the follow-up and the hustle and Dr. Ben and I are watching one of our newer injectors kind of blossom, and it's been a full year. I would say it's taken her a full year to even get to the point where she's like, oh, I got this. So, I mean, if they have the heart, if they have the hustle, if they have the hunger, I would say give them grace up to a year to be, 80% booked, in my opinion.
And I think you need to differentiate proficient and able to take clients versus like a full book of clients. Like
Right.
if that partner has a book of clients and they're like bursting at the seams, then it's on him to get their book filled, right? In 2 months, you could potentially ramp someone up so they're taking 30 well, maybe not 30, but neurotox, having a full book of neurotoxin patients, right? But if you're just having that injector that's green, have to learn plus get their own clients in, that's never gonna happen unless there's some sort of celebrity, famous influencer person, then maybe, but even then, chances are no,
Yeah,
right?
I just don't
And
see it.
also, what tools is the office using? How many marketing dollars are they allotting? Are they doing anything internally to get other patients to go over to them? Like there's so many different differentiating factors that go
Yeah.
into those things.
Yeah, my hiring cadence was I was looking ahead 6 months, thinking, what's my book of business going to be like in 6 months and my staffing needs. And so I would prep thinking ahead to be able to hire so that way I could have someone fully trained doing most of what I'd want them to do so they could see most of the clients in 6 months, knowing that it was going to take that long for me to grow the business to support them. Like I never brought someone in and expected them to support themselves. I always grew them. But
Mhm.
you gotta, if you're not looking ahead and thinking through that, then again, there's other business issues at play here probably.
Mhm.
All right. Yeah, so thank you so much, Dr. Ben. So before we wrap up tonight, I just want to quickly remind everyone again about the complimentary marketing strategy meeting from Equa Marketing. So if growing your practice, improving visibility online, and attracting more of the right patients is something that you're focused on right now, this is definitely worth taking advantage of. So the team will actually research your practice beforehand, including your online presence, local competition, and visibility opportunities. So the session is personalized specifically to your market. So you'll see the QR code back up on the screen right now and the booking link as well. So it's also in the chat if you'd like to grab a session. It only takes a minute to book and spots are limited. So hurry up. All right. So as we wrap up, I just want to say a huge thank you again to all of our panelists for sharing their time and expertise with us today. And a thank you to everyone who joined us and spent part of your evening with us. Just a final reminder, once again, to take advantage of the complimentary marketing strategy meeting from Equa Marketing and also to complete the feedback survey before exiting the webinar. Thank you again, everyone, and we hope to see you at a future Business of Aesthetics event. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Bye.